The boy was supposed to be dead. That's what the entire town believed. Rain crashed against the rooftops of Black Creek while frightened townspeople gathered outside the mayor's mansion in the middle of the night. Thunder shook the sky so violently that windows rattled across the street. Then lightning flashed, and everyone saw him, standing at the front gate like a ghost from hell. Elias Crow, the most feared outlaw in the West.
His black coat dripped with rainwater. Mud covered his boots. A revolver hung at his side. And in his arms was the mayor's missing blind son, unconscious, bloody, barely breathing. Gasps spread through the crowd. Women covered their mouths in horror. Men immediately reached for rifles. Sheriff Walter Briggs stepped forward and pointed his revolver straight at Elias's head. "Put the boy down." The outlaw didn't move. The rain poured harder. The mayor pushed through the crowd desperately. "Samuel!" His voice cracked with panic. The boy hadn't been seen for 3 days. 3 days.
Most people assumed he'd already been buried somewhere in the mountains. But now here he was, alive. The sheriff cocked his revolver. "I said put him down." Slowly, Elias handed the boy to the mayor. Samuel was freezing cold and shaking violently. The mayor hugged him tightly. Then he looked up at Elias with hatred burning in his eyes. "You took my son." Elias stared at him without emotion. "No." The outlaw's voice was calm. "I saved him." The entire crowd erupted into angry shouting. "Liar! Murderer! Hang him!" Sheriff Briggs smiled coldly. "You expect us to believe that?"
Elias ignored him completely. Instead, he looked toward the dark hills surrounding Black Creek. His eyes narrowed. Then he said 5 words that froze everyone in place. "They followed me here." Silence. Nobody understood what he meant. Then, boom! A rifle shot exploded from the darkness. The mayor screamed as a bullet smashed through the mansion window inches from his face. People panicked instantly. Another shot rang out, then another. The crowd scattered in terror. Women dragged children into houses while men fired blindly toward the hills. Elias moved first, fast, terrifyingly fast.
He pulled his revolver and fired one single shot into the darkness. Bang! A distant scream echoed through the storm. The outlaw had hit someone, without even seeing them. The sheriff looked stunned, but Elias wasn't finished. He turned toward the mayor. "You have 1 hour before they come back." Then he disappeared into the rain. And for the first time in years, Black Creek realized something horrifying. The outlaw everyone feared might not be the real monster. 3 days earlier, Black Creek looked peaceful from the outside. Small wooden houses, dusty streets,
Children laughing near the stables. The kind of town where people left doors unlocked at night. But peace can hide evil better than chaos. And beneath Black Creek, something rotten was growing. It started with missing children. First, a rancher's daughter disappeared near the river. Then a stable boy vanished after sunset. Then 2 brothers never returned home from the woods. No bodies were found, no clues, no witnesses, just silence. Sheriff Briggs blamed wolves, then drifters, then mountain bandits. But deep down, people were afraid, because children weren't the only ones disappearing. Adults who asked too many questions vanished too. And every single time, Sheriff Briggs closed the investigation immediately. Mayor Theodore Grayson pretended everything was under control, but privately, even he was terrified, especially for his son. Samuel Grayson was different from other children, blind since birth, quiet, sensitive, but strangely intelligent. People whispered strange things about him. Some claimed he could hear footsteps from impossible distances. Others believed the boy could sense danger before it happened. And recently, Samuel had become afraid of the dark.
Every night he repeated the same sentence. He's getting closer. The mayor thought it was imagination, until the night Samuel vanished. The storm began just after midnight. Servants rushed through the mansion, closing windows while thunder shook the walls. Samuel sat quietly inside his room. Then suddenly, the candles went out. A loud thud echoed upstairs. The servants froze. Another noise followed, like furniture dragging across the floor. The mayor grabbed a lantern and ran toward Samuel's room. The door was open. The window shattered. Cold wind poured inside, and Samuel was gone.
Only one thing remained on the floor. A black playing card, with a silver crow painted across it. The symbol of Elias Crow. The mayor nearly collapsed. Sheriff Briggs arrived within minutes. When he saw the card, his expression darkened. Crow finally crossed the line. The town exploded into panic, because everyone knew the stories about Elias Crow, the outlaw who robbed corrupt bankers, the gunslinger who killed 6 bounty hunters alone, the ghost rider seen crossing deserts during storms. Some stories claimed he murdered innocent people. Others claimed he protected them.
Nobody knew what was true anymore, but one rumor was repeated everywhere. Elias Crow never harmed children. Never. Which meant only 2 possibilities existed. Either the stories were lies, or someone wanted the town to blame him. Deep inside the mountains, Samuel sat beside a campfire, alive, unharmed, wrapped in a heavy coat. Across from him sat Elias Crow himself. The outlaw handed him a cup of coffee carefully. "You should rest." Samuel shook his head slowly. "They're still behind us." Elias stiffened. "How many?" The blind boy tilted his head toward the trees. 4.
The outlaw immediately stood up. Most people believed Samuel was helpless because he couldn't see, but they were wrong. The boy's hearing was terrifyingly sharp. He could hear footsteps long before others, breathing, heartbeats, even whispers carried through the wind. And right now, someone was hunting them. Elias kicked dirt over the fire instantly. Darkness swallowed the camp. Branches cracked nearby. Then silence. Too much silence. The outlaw slowly pulled his revolver. Samuel grabbed his sleeve tightly. "They don't sound normal." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?"
The boy swallowed nervously. "They breathe wrong." Suddenly, a figure burst from the darkness. Its face was covered with stitched leather, its movements twisted unnaturally, and in its hand was a long knife stained with blood. The creature charged. Bang! Elias fired instantly. The figure dropped dead, but another appeared behind the trees. Then another. Samuel's breathing quickened. There are more. For the first time in years, fear crossed Elias Crow's face, because he recognized the masks, and he knew exactly who wore them. Back in Black Creek, Sheriff Briggs was hiding secrets.
Late that night, he entered the jail basement, carrying a lantern. A man sat chained against the wall. Old, bruised, terrified. The prisoner looked up desperately. "You gotta let me go." Sheriff Briggs crouched beside him calmly. "You spoke to Crow, didn't you?" The old man shook violently. "I swear I didn't tell him everything." The sheriff sighed. "You should have stayed quiet." The prisoner started crying. "What you people are doing to those children, it ain't human." The sheriff's eyes turned cold. Neither was his answer. "You should pray quickly."
A scream echoed through the basement moments later. By morning, the prisoner had vanished. Official report: escaped custody. But the truth was far darker. Black Creek wasn't peaceful. It was infected.
And Elias Crow knew exactly where the infection began. Years earlier, before becoming an outlaw, Elias Crow had worn a badge. He was once Deputy Elias Carter, honest, respected, loyal to the law, until he discovered what powerful men were doing beneath Black Creek. Silver had been discovered in the mountains nearby, enough silver to make rich men richer. But families lived on that land.
Poor families. Families who refused to leave. So the mayor made a deal. Sheriff Briggs enforced it, and anyone who resisted disappeared. At first, Elias refused to believe it, until one night, he followed the sheriff into the mines and saw children locked underground, terrified, starving, sold to traffickers passing through the region. Elias tried exposing the truth. Instead, they framed him for murder, burned his house, killed his wife, and hunted him across the West. That was the night Deputy Elias Carter died, and Elias Crow was born. Back in the mountains,
Samuel finally revealed the truth. There's a tunnel under the town. Elias stared at him. What tunnel? The place where they hide the children. The outlaw's blood ran cold. Samuel trembled. I heard my father talking to the sheriff. The boy's voice cracked. They think I don't understand because I'm blind. Tears rolled down his cheeks. They sell children. Silence filled forest. Even Elias looked shaken. The missing kids, the disappearances, the masked hunters, everything finally connected. Black Creek wasn't haunted. It was corrupted, and the mayor himself was part of it.
Then suddenly, a gun cocked behind Elias. You should have kept running, Crow. Sheriff Briggs stepped from the darkness with 6 armed men surrounding them. Samuel gasped. Elias slowly stood. The sheriff smiled. Hand over the boy. Elias glanced at Samuel, then back at Briggs. You know I can't do that. The sheriff sighed. Then you die with him. Bang! Gunfire exploded across the forest. Bullets ripped through trees. Men screamed. Samuel covered his ears in terror, but Elias moved like death itself. Fast, silent, merciless. Bang! One deputy dropped instantly. Another vanished into darkness. The sheriff panicked. Spread out! Worst mistake possible, because Elias Crow hunted best in darkness. One by one, the deputies disappeared. A scream echoed from the trees. Then another. Briggs began breathing heavily, terrified. He spun around wildly, searching the shadows. Too late. Elias stepped behind him silently. You buried too many secrets. The sheriff turned. Bang! Hours later came the stormy night at the mansion, the moment Elias returned Samuel alive. But now the truth was impossible to hide, because Sheriff Briggs never came back.
neither did his deputies. Fear spread rapidly through Black Creek. People locked doors, loaded rifles. Whispers filled every street. Then came the final horror. At sunrise, a hidden tunnel was discovered beneath the church. Inside were chains, tiny shoes, bloodstains, and dozens of missing children. Alive, weak, terrified. The town erupted into chaos. Parents screamed while hugging children they thought were dead. Women cried openly in the streets. Men demanded answers. And standing near the tunnel entrance was Mayor Theodore Grayson. Broken, exposed, destroyed. The truth finally surfaced.
For years, the mayor had secretly sold orphaned and poor children to traffickers moving through the mining tunnels. Sheriff Briggs protected the operation. Anyone who learned the truth disappeared, including Elias's wife. Black Creek had never been peaceful. It had simply been silent, until Elias Crow returned. The townspeople searched everywhere for the outlaw afterward, but Elias vanished. No reward, no goodbye, nothing.
Only Samuel knew where he went, because before disappearing, Elias visited him one final time.
The blind boy sat quietly on the mansion porch when he heard approaching footsteps. "You're leaving." Elias stopped beside him. "Yes." Samuel lowered his head. "Why did you save me?" The outlaw stared toward the sunrise. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then, finally, "Because someone once failed to save my son." Samuel froze. "You had a son?" Elias nodded slowly. "He would have been your age." Pain filled his voice for the first time. Samuel understood then. The outlaw wasn't cold because he lacked feelings. He was cold because grief had frozen them. "You're not evil," Samuel whispered.
Elias gave a faint smile. "No." Then his expression darkened again. "But I've done evil things." He placed something into Samuel's hand. The silver crow card. "If darkness ever returns to this town, send for me." Then Elias Crow mounted his horse and rode into the desert, vanishing like smoke beneath the rising sun. Years later, people still told stories about Black Creek. Some believed Elias Crow died in the mountains. Others swore they saw him riding through storms at night. But one story never changed. The most feared outlaw in the West was the only man brave enough to save the town.
And every time thunder rolled across Black Creek, parents checked their locks, children stared nervously toward the hills, and somewhere beyond the desert, a lone cowboy still watched from the shadows, waiting for monsters to return again.